Well, hi. We're going to do a quick 7 minute, sorry, summary of today's class. That's from Monday, the 18th of May. So Amazon, set a 7 minute timer.
7 minutes, starting now.
Okay, let's begin. I'm going to just pop right up to 1 Corinthians chapter 14 because that's where we're going to spend our time today, okay? Now, I want to show you something here. What we're going to do is we're going to run through it. I can't read it. That's what we did today, but I can't read it. I just want to note something. Each chapter has as a major part, not chapter, paragraph. Each paragraph in 1 Corinthians chapter 14 seems to have a single theme. And the theme is here in verse 4 or verse 3. The person who prophesies speaks to people for edification, encouragement, and consolation. And the word edification means to build somebody up. It's built out of the word house, and it means to build a person up, to make them to be stronger, to be more mature. And this concept of building up people is really the center of this paragraph. Then we pop down to the next paragraph, the second paragraph, and we'll read the same thing. So notice he says in the last verse, verse 12, so then, you also, since you are zealous for spiritual gifts, seek to excel in building up the church. Notice again, this idea of building up. The whole paragraph is about building people up. That's the second paragraph. The third paragraph is the same thing. So he says, what then? I will pray with the Spirit, and I will also pray with my understanding. I will sing with the Spirit, and I will also sing with my understanding. And he goes down and he says, for you may very well be giving thanks, but the other person is not. And there we go again, build up. And he says, I thank God I speak in other languages more than all of you. Yet in the church, I would rather speak 5 words with my understanding to teach others also than 10,000 words in another language. So again, it's about building up. And here the building up is, and it's really important, it's building up with words, 5 words that are understandable rather than 10,000 words in a tongue. Why? Because building up requires information that goes to the mind. It requires teaching. So that's our second paragraph, our third paragraph, sorry. Now let's look at our fourth paragraph. He talks about tongues and prophecy, etc. But again, it is about building people up, although it's not as clearly about building people up in this verse, but it does have something to do with it. The next paragraph, he says, all things must be done for edification. That word edification is building up again. It's the same word. So what we have here is, it just seems to be the major theme of each one of these paragraphs, not so much in the paragraph before this, but all of the other ones, seems like it's the major theme is building up. And it seems like every decision that's made is, does it build up or doesn't it build up? And if it doesn't build up, then we don't want to do it. And then these 2 paragraphs are a different issue because it's talking about women being involved in the judging of prophecies, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. What I just wanted you to notice is that building up seems to be the major theme in chapter 14. I will also tell you that the word tongues and the word prophecy appear a lot in this chapter. So this chapter is about tongues and prophecy, but the point of the chapter is building up. Everything must be done for building up other people. And it doesn't say it once, it says it in 5 of the 8 paragraphs, talks about building people up as its main point. 5 out of the 8 paragraphs. So that says to me that even if I don't understand the individual verses, I can understand the whole chapter, because the subject of the chapter is something to do with tongues and prophecy and people being built up. And according to this chapter, the people are built up with information, with knowledge, with words. They're not built up by the emotional experience of speaking in tongues. That doesn't build other people up. People are built up when you have information, words. Paul says even 5 words that are understandable. And so backing off, I now realize that I understand the chapter. Now, we looked today, as it came out, verse 26. What then is the conclusion, brothers? Whenever you come together, each one has a psalm, a teaching, a revelation, another language, that's tongues, or an interpretation. All things must be done for edification. We already said that. If any person speaks in another language, I'm going to switch this version over. It's a little less confusing. If anyone speaks in a tongue, two, or at the most three should speak, one at a time, and someone must interpret. And this someone must interpret, this word interprets what we call imperative mood, and it means it's required, it has to happen. So notice this, I don't think most people know that this is in the Bible. It's right here in the Word of God. If anyone speaks in tongue, two or at the most three should speak, one at a time, and someone must interpret. If there is no interpreter, the speaker should keep quiet in the church and speak to himself and God. So there's some, seems to me, like very important information there that most people don't know about. The Word of God specifically says that no more than three people should ever speak in tongues in a church service, and not at the same time. One person speaks, and there must be an interpretation. And if there is no interpreter, there's no one there to interpret it, then the person who says it must be quiet. There's new information. It's clearly what the scripture says. Same thing about prophecies. 2 or 3 prophets should speak, and others should weigh carefully what is said. And if a revelation comes to someone who's sitting down, the first speaker should stop. For you can all prophesy in turn, so that everyone may be instructed and encouraged. And it's the point that Paul's making here, and it's a very important point, is that there shouldn't be a prophecy unless it's judged. It has to be judged. 2 or 3 prophets should speak, and the others should weigh carefully what is said. So you just don't speak, you have to be judged by it. I think that would solve a lot of problems that we have in our churches today. So here is the general idea that we're looking at this chapter. We saw when we look at the whole chapter, we see that most of the paragraphs are about building other people up. And most of the paragraphs are about building other people up. And it does talk a lot about tongues, and it does talk a lot about prophecy. But what's so important to recognize in this chapter is that building people up is speaking to the mind. Okay, I hope that helped a lot. And just have a great day, and I'll see you. We need to see you in class. So if at all possible, you need to come to class. God bless you. Take care.